In this episode, I built a village for every single biome in Minecraft Hardcore. Now, I had it all planned out in my head, but trust me, it didn't exactly unfold as expected. I, of course, began with gathering research to determine just how many biomes there are in the game. That's when it hit me like a ton of bricks, or in this case, like a ton of dirt blocks. Building villages in all 79 biomes? I mean, we're talking countless hours of work, and it would probably take me into the next update just to finish one. And when that update comes, I'll have to add even more stuff, such as one entire new block and perhaps a useless mob that provides pretty much nothing new to the game. With that being said, I started rethinking my life choices. So yeah, that's way too much fucking work and will take ages to finish. So I did a little creative pruning, shall we say. It turns out that a lot of these so-called biomes are just variations on a theme. For example, forest, flower forest, plains, meadow, and rivers. They're all pretty much the same thing. A bunch of fucking forest. To sum it all up, I've shaved the number of biomes down to a much more comfortable 18. I promise it's not because I couldn't handle the sheer number of biomes. No, not at all. But don't worry, I will still be gathering up all the unique parts and incorporating the different landscapes which make up each biome. So, which 18 biomes did I pick? Well, you'll have to watch and find out for yourself. Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've been on here. Oh well. Anyways, it's been rather difficult to find motivation to continue my series. Things have been getting a bit... well, that's not really important, I suppose. Okay, so on to the actual video. But before we get into it, I'm going to do that thing where I beg you to click a bunch of buttons. If you could ever be so kind to like this video, subscribe to my channel, ring that notification bell, and perhaps leave a comment, that would be fantastic. It's all for the greater good, you know? It's for the greater good of... well, you get the idea. And sharing my message with the world is what will help me escape from... If you can't tell already, I've been working on a few things in my base. For one, I filled the walls with stone brick and added 3 floors. I'm not sure exactly how this is all going to play out, but so far I've decided to dedicate floor 3 for what I can only describe as a wild quest to collect every single mob in the game, while also having a minecart ride running through it. I don't know. Floor 2 is going to be a farming area. I've already added several sections like a wheat farm, pumpkin farm, and a beetroot farm. I made them relatively small because I will literally never go into there ever again after building them anyways. Especially the beetroot area. Just look, there are spiderwebs here already. Golden carrots and steak are the top tier nutrients here. Top tier nutrients for a top tier Minecraft player? Seriously, I've consumed so many golden carrots that I'm starting to wonder if I'll turn into gold myself one of these days. Which doesn't sound so bad now that I think about it. At least this way others will finally acknowledge me. Floor 1. It's going to be my super high-tech, super cool storage and organization zone. I'm talking about a redstone setup that'll automatically sort the items I toss into one chest and into their own respective chests. Yeah, it sounds complicated. And I'll get into the details, I don't know, maybe in 8 months, give or take. Oh, and here's the top of my base. I added purple and pink glass to give it more of a, hey, look at me, can't you tell I'm trying to allude to something here? Kind of meme. And it really brings out the shape of my base. Which is me because, well, who else would it be? I'm the star of the show here. Okay, I think that sums up just about everything I've done off camera so far. Anyways, back into gaming mode. Now I just realized that I completely forgot about all the materials I'd collected in my jungle area. So, I'm gonna go grab them real quick. What the hell? What is this? Oh, great. It's all good though. I kinda figured the recent update would fuck up my world. It's a good thing I made It's a good thing I made a few backups. I'll just go back to my recent one real quick. Not a big deal. I'll be right back. Okay, cool. Now there's a massive crack consuming the area I'd spent hours working on. Though I must admit, the crack was probably doing it a favor. Yes. You want me to go in there and take a look? Well, that's not gonna happen. Not again. And so we begin with the Grasslands Village, the preferred biome for starting a brand new world since it's easy to navigate through, and the animals, cows and sheep especially, are abundant.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Wanna chop some wood? Well, you're in luck in the Grasslands, for not far from it you're sure to find an oakwood forest. Forget the utilize the oakwood forest to satisfy your immense desire for getting wood. And of course we cannot forget the hidden gems, biomes such as the flower forest and meadow, which garner various exclusive treats such as flowers. And even more flowers. And just when you thought that was it, even more flowers! Oh. Did I mention flowers? Minecraft, in all its glory, even treats us to bees the size of your head. Because, you know, Minecraft is all about that strict adherence to realism. Who needs fireflies when we can prioritize virtual frog's safety? Congratulations, Mojang, on single-handedly saving the environment. Embarking on my journey, I decided to take a stroll down memory lane to revisit my very first masterpiece within the confines of my base, the underground farm. The underground farm thing that contains, you guessed it, farm-related life form. Here I will be expanding upon its beauty by adding space for villagers to live and wreak havoc. But because villagers have a brain smaller than the average Minecraft YouTuber, I had to ensure that there were no areas taller than 3 blocks so that they don't take damage and try to sue me for reckless endangerment.
Bruh.
Because that would not be good, considering I'm currently under the watchful eye of, if not the most powerful I needed to expand the area to make room for my village. But I soon realized that I was going to need a lot more sand to make TNT, so I went to the nearest desert and harvested enough sand to give Iron Man some serious flashbacks.
Huh?
But don't worry, Mr. Stark, it's just for a construction project, and though I will be blowing stuff up, it won't be half as aggressive as Thanos and his Mind Stone. The other material needed, gunpowder, was not an issue. Remember that creeper farm I built out of dirt blocks and whatever leftover materials I happened to have at the time? Yeah, that thing still works like a charm. Wow, that's a lot of damage. Great, now I have enough cobblestone and leftover sand to build the Edinburgh Castle. But that's not what we're gonna build today, or ever. The Edinburgh Castle was built with meticulous precision, and well, my builds resemble something a toddler would assemble with building blocks. So, off to the massive hoard of storage chests they go. I will organize this eventually. I promise. Starting with the foundation, I line the new area with dirt blocks to match what I've already built. I decided that each village will have one of each profession's buildings, as well as however many houses I'll need to allow each villager to have a place to sleep. And no, I won't be creating my own ideas for a village. What do you think I am, Gran? We are sticking with good old vanilla Minecraft villages. At least that is until I have to delve into the biomes that don't currently have their own unique village generations. But that won't be until later. And with my final oak wood block, we have successfully completed our first biome. But wait, there's more. We still need to finish the railway, so I built under the walls and built a railway surrounding the village. I went with stone bricks and cobblestone for the floor. It does look pretty good if I do say so myself. And as for the walls, I of course had to make the outside part glass so that you can actually see the village. And I'm realizing now that I could have just used fences for this part, but I had already smelted a ton of glass, so we're doing it the hard way this time. Mix it up a bit. Savor the moment, because this is the last time you'll catch me putting in more effort than the absolute bare minimum. For the outside border for the glass, I went with spruce logs, which I later decided to splice? Slice? Split? What's it called again? Whatever. Anyways, I removed the log's foreskin and it looks a lot better now. For the other wall, I went with oak planks and logs. Admittedly, I wasn't sure if I liked it at first, but hey, by the end, I managed to create a pattern that didn't look like complete dog. But wait! Where are the flowers from the flower forest? I didn't forget, genius. I wasn't sure where to put them, okay? Why are all these bees here?
Take us to the flowers.
What? Okay. Flower placement. Put them in pots and shove them into the wall of the railway hole. And of course I didn't forget to add a touch of birch to the village. Bam. There. Now, before we start bitching into banning a whole birch village to fulfill the biome deal, let me clarify. If I did that, it would just be birch instead of oak. Do you really want to watch me build the same thing all over?
Huh?
And with that being said, let's move on to the next biome. It's hot. Why is it so hot? Oh, right. We're in the desert. For speedrunners, this place is paradise. No trees to smack your face into, barely any water to wade through, and you can spot Endermen from a mile away. But for us casual adventurers, or let's say strategically slow players, the desert's a different story. There's not much here other than cacti, dead bushes, camels, and those vase things that I still don't quite understand and probably never will. Minecraft YouTuber, remember? Occasionally, you'll come across a group of sand blocks that don't generate with sandstone underneath. And with that comes satisfying visuals as you feast your eyes upon the snippets of sandstoneless sand plunged to the ground. Bonus points for any mobs that happen to be below and become unwitting victims of the Pharaoh's curse. Oh, and the temples. You gotta be careful with these. Unless of course you enjoy being blown to pieces. In which case, hats off to you. But please, keep a safe explosion radius away from me. Thanks.
C4 has been successfully activated.
Huh?
Also, there are these things called husks, which are essentially just reskinned zombies, but with much more frightening groans, and unlike yours truly, they don't burst into flames when exposed to direct sunlight. The only light I routinely absorb derives from the glow of LCD screens. In terms of weather, there isn't any. That's about it for the desert biome, letting those mobs roam freely. And, just for shits and giggles, throwing in a minecart ride because, well, why not? Come on! I thought it was a unique and quirky idea at the time, okay? Now I don't care anymore. If you were expecting perfection, ironic I couldn't say that, you might want to switch channels. Okay, back to the desert village. I kick things off by stuffing a bunch of shulker chests with sand, sandstone, cactus wool, wood, and all the other crap needed for this masterpiece. Now, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but there is a massive crack in the desert I built in a previous episode, and the desert bunny I'd spent hours trying to maneuver over here without it falling to its death is gone. So, there's that. Go figure. And, as luck would have it, there's not enough room for all the buildings in this section either. So what did I do? Well, prepare yourself for even more environmental destruction because, yeah, I had to blow up even more shit. But wait, there's a plot twist. Remember that massive crack? Yeah, turns out there's an underground section I'd already explored and lit up before. I don't exactly remember doing it, but I ain't exactly upset about it. It's almost like my memory has been wiped clean. Wiped away from some unknown force. Meh, who knows? Wait, what were you talking about again? Oh yeah, Desert Village, right. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna reroute this entire section of the build. Why? Because if I can skip unnecessary work, you bet your ass I'm gonna do it. Efficiency, my friends. Efficiency. Although I probably should have brought this up earlier, but those weird green and purple villagers that were in this cage are gone. So there's that. Since I am unable to fix any of the corrupted parts of my world, I decided to try my best to cover it and turn it into an oasis within my desert village. That way, the villagers can have a spot to drink water and walk into cacti. Their idiocy never fails to amuse me.
Huh? 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 Huh?
Cut that part out. To the right of whatever the hell this is, there is a giant exposed area in the cave. That is where our desert village is going to go. But first, I need to fill in that massive hole so that villagers don't go accidentally unaliving themselves.
Ha. Ah. Ha.
You saw nothing. In case anyone asks, Robert decided to relocate to Cuba. Wait, we're missing something. The ground. Sand! Yeah!
Hey, you're just mad because I'll be able to do something with my fucking guitar in hands that you'll never be able to achieve in your entire life, kid. So yeah, you're gay.
Basically, when I got to the tannery, things took an unexpected turn. I found myself in a peculiar situation, essentially gaslighting myself into believing that I had placed the doors the wrong way. But after looking it over a few more times, and comparing it with the video tutorial, it turns out the doors were where they were supposed to be all along, and the tannery could now resume its rightful place in my desert village. Additionally, in this house, right here, I stumbled upon a situation that demands an elaborate monologue for adequate explanation. It appears that my field of vision, or rather, my internal awareness of dimensional planes, had momentarily collapsed. So, I inadvertently made this part of the building 3 blocks long instead of the intended 2. Now you may be wondering why I'm choosing to mention this in explicit detail. It's because I take immense pleasure in calling out my own moments of intellectual lapse. It's a delightful ritual that makes me appear more down to earth, more relatable, forging a bond between me and my viewers. Yes folks, even in the expansive realm of Minecraft, I too can succumb to the occasional lapse in judgment. Also, I can't help but marvel at the architectural wonders crafted by these villagers. Seriously, how can such dull and, let's be honest, annoying creatures create such intricate works of art? Not to mention their arms are permanently fused together, for fuck's sake. Why is it that their adversaries, like the Vindicator, effortlessly manage to unfuse their arms to attack me, while these guys seem incapable of performing such a seemingly mundane task? Seems pretty unfair to me. Okay, wow, am I going on a tangent here? Let's get back on track, shall we? Speaking of tracks, we need to lay down the railway around this thing. So I dug around the area and did pretty much the same thing as the plains and birch villages, except this time I went with more deserty themed blocks like sandstone and junglewood. Now for the oasis. Turns out I can't even place things on top of the corrupted block, so I just put the oasis above it.
Well, why don't you just expand the area?
No, that takes time. And with the following that I currently have, it's just not worth the hassle right now. That's my way of guilt tripping you into subscribing to my channel, by the way. Now do it! It's free! Takes 2 seconds. Less than that, actually. This is a perfect example of how I go about facing my problems. I cover them up, ensuring I never have to confront the harsh embrace of reality. Speaking of covering up my problems, I ran out of room for housing, animal pens, and the meeting area. So I This town ain't big enough for the two of us. Draw.
Huh?
Are you fucking kidding me?
Huh?
Welcome to the Badlands, or as the Minecraft veterans might nostalgically recall, the Mesa Biome. A biome that's a treasure trove for builders in pursuit of terracotta to add a touch of hardened, crusty mud to their creations. You'll find in this biome dead bushes and cacti. And that's about it, actually. There's not much to it other than it looks like somebody ate one too many Snickers bars, then proceeded to smear their after results across rugged terrain. My god, that analogy was disgusting. I apologize. Nestled among the Snickers-striped plateaus of the Badlands, you might stumble upon a rare sight, an exposed mineshaft. But this isn't your run-of-the-mill traditional oak wood mineshaft. Oh no. You see, this one's got dark oak wood. It's different. It offers an exclusive selection of delicacies just waiting for you to stumble upon, including, but not limited to, dark oak planks, dark oak logs, and never mind. Here's where the real challenge begins. We're diving into the complex task of designing structures that resonate with the distinct flair of the biome, yet still retain the essence of the classic vanilla Minecraft villages. With no readily made template to copy, I had to resort to creating my own designs for each profession and household. So I dove horn first into a creative world and teleported to the nearest Badlands biome to gather some much needed inspiration. I began by creating a color palette for the village buildings, trying to include blocks that would be readily available for villagers to use within this biome. This area, lesser known, but equally lackluster, features a handful of oak trees and tufts of grass, offering a smidgen of variety and I suppose a few more building materials for my constructions. And then there's the red sand, an oversight on my part. Sad to say it's not making a palette cut because, in all honesty, it completely slipped my mind. And I had already created the designs, so it seems the red sand will just have to wait this one out. Which is unfortunate because that one single block would have opened a whole new world of building possibilities. Oh well, we must move forward. With all of these elements in consideration, I eventually settled on a palette that encapsulates the good old Wild West, which seemed to me to be a theme that naturally complemented the biome's character. Now let's mosey on out of here and move on to my creative world where I built the prototype village. The initial designs I envisioned featured mangrove logs instead of oak, which, in my opinion, looked much better. However, sticking to that wouldn't have made sense because mangrove wood isn't native in this biome. To maintain a vanilla-inspired theme, I had to tweak the design and settled with oak wood instead.
Bruh. Huh?
So if for some strange reason you've got a hankering to build these in your own world, I'll be posting these tutorials across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube Shorts. But get this, you'll need to follow me on all three to wrangle the complete set of instructions for the whole village. Now it's time to rebuild them all, but with the stakes and danger dialed up tenfold, because this time I'm doing it in hardcore mode. My first move, I dug right into a wall in my desert village, carving a staircase down. Why, you ask? Because I actually used a bit of strategy this time around, opting to expand the cave I'd previously sealed off. Upon rediscovering the cave, naturally I had to clear some space using TNT since its initial size was laughably inadequate. the ceiling of this new area? Yeah, I flattened it out completely. The reason? I'm gonna create a terracotta sunset overhead to look down on my village. My god, mining the terracotta turned out to be the bane of my existence. Which led me to a bold decision. It was time to confront the Wither so I could finally acquire a beacon. But first, netherite armor. Because the thought of unaliving after all this hard work is making my blood boil. Off to the nether I went, strip mining for a couple of hours until I amassed enough netherite scraps for a full set of armor, plus a sword and pickaxe. Finally feeling somewhat confident, I ventured off into a small cave and summoned the three-headed skeleton creature for a showdown. It was much easier than I expected. I mean, I've defeated this thing many times with no issues, but in hardcore mode, never. So this was certainly a surprise. It's almost making me confident enough to take on the Warden. Okay, maybe not. Once that was done, I entered creative mode and gave myself 164 iron blocks to max out the beacon. I mean, nah. But in all seriousness, I did actually mine all of that iron. You just gotta trust me, bro. Just trust me, bro. With the beacon now built and fully maxed out, I went back to the painstaking task of mining bucopes and bucopes of terracotta.
Beaucoup.
Which means a French word meaning a lot or much. Let's say it all together.
Bucope.
One more time.
Bucope. Like so much terracotta, I think I may have single-handedly decimated an entire ecosystem. Anyways, not my problem. Back to my build. Let's start with smoothing out the explosion remnants to allow for more authentic representation of the Badlands biome. Now it's time to swap out the deep slate floor for red sand. I'm crossing my fingers that the space will be sufficient, but knowing my track record, it might end up being a tight squeeze, which is exactly why I left one of the walls bare, just in case expansion becomes necessary. Okay, next up is the ceiling, and for that, I've dyed terracotta in an array of colors to mimic a sunset. I'm really hoping this turns out great because there's no chance I'm redoing it if it doesn't. Building on the ceiling in survival mode is already a painstaking task. Honestly, I'm just amazed my neck is still intact after all that looking up. Hey, it's actually not all that bad if you squint your eyes a bit. Who am I kidding? It's awful. Without further delay, let's get to the village speed building montage.
Bruh.
From the seagrass and kelp embodying the seafloor, to the various aquatic life forms that swim within it, I strive to stay as far away from these biomes as I possibly can. The last thing I want to do is spend my time diving into the water searching for shipwrecks and ocean ruins, only to be aimbotted by a trident-wielding drowned zombie. Why the hell do they take so much damage? Fuck off! As is the case with nearly every biome, there are variants to the ocean biome, 9 to be exact. These variants are the warm ocean, lukewarm ocean, deep lukewarm ocean, deep ocean, cold ocean, deep cold ocean, frozen ocean, and deep frozen ocean. Each variant presents a unique shade of blue, ranging from the light hues of warmer waters to the deep blues of the colder waters. The standard ocean features gravel, seagrass, kelp, and occasional sand, dirt, and clay. It's home to the usual aquatic suspects like cod, dolphins, and squids. Plus, there are some treasures hidden in the ocean monuments and shipwrecks. Deep oceans, about 30 blocks deep to be exact, share similar traits but also include the occasional thrill of underwater trenches and their magma block whirlpools. Frozen oceans, bordered by snowy beaches, have gravel beds and ice surfaces, hosting polar bears and salmon. Deep versions offer more depth, but without surface ice. Cold oceans, adjacent to cold biomes, have sparse seagrass and a gravel floor, with deep versions being deeper and richer in seagrass and structures. Lukewarm oceans, found near warmer biomes, predominantly have sandy floors and house tropical fish, pufferfish, and dolphins. Their deep counterparts also include ocean monuments and more seagrass. Warm oceans, typically near deserts and badlands, feature sandy floors without dirt, clay, or gravel in shallow areas, and are rich in coral reefs and sea pickles. Okay, that was a lot of information. Now to the actual village. Because villagers cannot breathe underwater, not even with a conduit nearby, I have no choice but to drain a portion of the ocean and create a glass dome where no water can seep in. Funnily enough, the idea of a glass dome had previously crossed my mind in an earlier episode.
Here is a rough draft I made of what I want the lush caves ocean section to look like. I will use warped wood and stone bricks for the railway structure, and glass to surround it.
However, I ultimately decided against it after learning that minecarts can still move underwater.
I realize now that you can use a railway underwater,
albeit very slowly. This time though, there's no way maneuvering my way around the issue. Thus, the construction of the glass shield commenced. Using my keen sense of observation, I spotted a fairly open area directly above the underwater minecart ride I'd built in a previous episode. However, to my utter demise, it was not nearly large enough to accommodate the ideas I had in mind. I think you know where this is going. Since TNT isn't exactly effective underwater, I had to resort to the old-fashioned method of manual labor. To put it simply, when it comes to realism, Minecraft's understanding of water physics is, let's say, a bit lacking. In an ideal world, the water would have gracefully flowed into place, filling the gaping void I had carved into the side of this here underwater cave. Yet, the water had other ideas, choosing to defy the very laws of physics that it should have obeyed, leaving me with yet another burdensome task to sink my hooves into. To save some time, and spare you the agony, I tackled this part mostly off camera. You can thank me later. Deciding to flirt with danger, I went ahead and constructed the glass dome first. Yes, there's a very real chance I might run out of space, but staying positive is key, even when facing daunting tasks, like the time I found out was actually actually and not a... It involves sectioning off the entire dome in a grid-like pattern, each piece of the grid made of sand. Fucking sand. I'm so tired of digging sand. Fuck! But it has to be done. Any other block, and I'd have to mine every single piece to take the grid down once I finish draining each section. With sand, and I guess gravel could work too, all I need to do is dig the bottom block, place the torch quickly, and voila! The entire tower collapses. And as you may already know, once you use the sponge, you have to cook the sponge in a furnace in order to dry it out. So yeah, I had to repeat this process a total of like a bajillion times. Not to mention how difficult it is to work with water in the first place. It seems that no matter how hard I try to soak up an entire section, 1 or 2 blocks of water manage to escape sponge absorption. So damn annoying. Instead of going with the usual grass, I decided to mix things up for the floor. I used moss, gravel, cobblestone, sand, and a few other bits and pieces to add some variety and texture. Hold on a second. Moss?
That's right, you can't find moss in the ocean.
Wrong! You can actually find up to 4 moss blocks in shipwreck supply chests. Now, you'll see once I finish my build, I didn't actually end up doing any of that, but I'm gonna keep that in so I appear more conscious and cognitively rewind for you all, the common folk. Diving back into my creative flat world, I designed 21 buildings for the village. Don't worry, I'm not going to gatekeep the builds this time. Starting with the basic house, it's a whopping 5x5 block radius. Wow, there's so much room here for activities. As a matter of fact, I can actually turn around, unlike those tiny expensive apartments they have in New York. It's too bad Minecraft doesn't have galvanized steel.
Oh my god! Galvanized square steel.
Also, I know what you're thinking.
How did the villagers get access to this porcelain?
Well, my bipedal acquaintances, you gotta really think creatively for this one. Ever heard of sunken ships? You see, I really pushed the boundaries with that one. Next, we have a larger house, designed to accommodate up to 4 villagers. This build was inspired by the structures that already exist in the game, specifically this one, the Big Brick 3. I went with light blue, dark blue, and cyan for the bed colors because, as you may or may not know already, blue is the color of water. No shit. And water gets darker as it gets deeper because light can't reach the bottom. So, light blue for the shallow end, dark blue for the deep end, and cyan because I don't fucking care. I replaced the flower pots typically found in your traditional vanilla village with coral, since, let's be real, flowers wouldn't exactly thrive underwater. Albeit the village isn't even underwater, it's in a fucking dome. But for simplicity's sake, and because I don't really care that much for design continuity, coral it is. But wait a second, doesn't coral die without water? And since my village is in a dome, how is the coral still alive? Well, to enhance your viewer experience, and mine, I found a mod called
Immortal Coral,
which was created by
Shower.
This add-on lets you place coral blocks anywhere without them drying out and unalive. Moving on, let's check out the next design. Here's my underwater rendition of the cleric's building. I incorporated features reminiscent of those sunken castles you'd find at a pet store for your goldfish. The first story of the building contains a sitting area, complemented by a blue glazed terracotta floor. There are also buttons all along the wall. I'm not sure what their purpose is, but I borrowed the idea from the Desert Village's tools design. Maybe if you push them in a certain order, something magical will happen.
Bruh.
Or maybe they just look cool. Heading back outside, you can walk up the steps along the side of the castle to the second story. Here you'll find the actual brewing stand that the cleric uses to offer you terrible deals on items like 2 pieces of redstone powder, or if you're really lucky, a single block of glowstone. Next on the list is the weaponsmith. The exterior is a straight up copy of one of the vanilla underwater structures, but as for the inside, I did that part myself. The floor is lined with polished granite blocks, specifically designed to ensure that whatever weapons the villager creates don't end up damaging the ground. You know what, I have yet to see any weapons genuinely be created by one of these guys. What do they even do with them? You never see a villager running around outside with an iron pickaxe or a sword. Do they just hoard them all? Perhaps they just wait around all day, hoping a random passerby such as myself will take them off their sutured nubs. Anywho. This is my underwater Fletcher design. This is also a blatant ripoff of a vanilla structure, but it wasn't chosen randomly. You see, being a Fletcher, these guys rely on range to do their daily duties of walking around in circles, jumping on top of their fletching table, and making a bow sound effect. Next is the librarian's building. This design was inspired by one of those classic cartoon castles. You know, one tower on the left, one tower on the right. Out front, I added an archway reminiscent of the arches at the entrances of ocean monuments. Inside, there's a room with a lectern so the librarian can write about how grateful they are to live in a glass cage for the rest of their lives. And another room for reading about the various crimes I've allegedly committed. You're gonna need a lot more paper for that, pal. Up next is probably the building I'm most proud of, the cartographer's house. This build was designed to resemble a mossy tree trunk cave, specifically inspired by those dingy aquarium decorations. Now my villagers have the exclusive opportunity to imagine themselves as little fish, with me being the prying observer tapping on their tank.
Open the door. Open the door. Open the door.
I sure do love conditioning these little guys. Now they know how I feel. Eighth up on the list is the blacksmith's building, or should I say, buildings. I accidentally made 2 of them. That's just what happens when your cognitive abilities resemble those of a wandering trader. Unrealistically insistent, short-lived, and with little talk. For the first one, I took a rather unique approach for the entrance, creating an incline leading downstairs. Then a ladder brings you up to the main section of the building, which features 2 grindstones, a large table for assembling the tools the villagers grind up, and a sitting area for when they get tired of jumping up and down on their grindstone all day. As for the second blacksmith, this design pays homage to the lost city of Atlantis. It features tall columns, elegant arches, and a mosaic-like floor. Notice how there are only 4 columns on each side, and no 5th one. After all, a 5th column would have been quite problematic. I actually really like this one. Like, just look at it. Seriously. Look at it. The next build, the stonemason, is quite literally a hole in the ground. Somehow, terracotta has found its way underwater. Who knew that was possible? The clay, however, makes sense because, well, it's clay. So I guess I got a half right, and that's good enough for me. Advancing forward, we have the underwater meeting area. This is where villagers will go to gossip and spread rumors about me allegedly unaliving Robert.
He's a f***ing hero, you morons!
Sheesh. It's made primarily of glass and stone bricks, forming a dome of sorts. There are 4 entries, 1 on each side. Prismarine blocks illuminate the paths, meeting in the middle, where a bell hangs from a prismarine column. Sea lantern lamps light up each corner, and a bit of sea pickles and coral adds a nice touch to really pull it all together. Next, we have the butcher's home. It starts with an L shape for the villagers area, with the remaining portion reserved for pigs. Attempting to maintain at least a morsel of continuity, I use stone brick pillars to support the roof, which is topped up with battlements so that the villagers can fight off impending raids. If they were able to, that is. The villager's smoker is surrounded by polished granite, with chiseled stone brick adorning its backside, echoing the style of classic vanilla underwater structures. And of course, every village needs a shepherd so they can have banners, I guess. Not exactly something I would prioritize, but I suppose every community needs at least one person who claims they're the hardest working individual since the dawn of time. Sure, Robert, I'll get back to you on that when you return from your hard-earned vacation in Cuba. The sheep pen stands beneath the shepherd's work area, with a staircase on either side of the build to take you up there. Inside the work area, there are 2 looms and a coral fan for decoration. And that's about it. I couldn't think of a clever one-liner to tie this one off. I lost count. Here's the armorer's hut. Now, at first this build was simply going to be a flat, rectangular shaped home with the typical battlements on top. And boy, when I tell you I was surprised I managed to create this thing without any sort of inspiration from other creators. I really mean it. But once I finished and took a closer look, I realized I'd forgotten to include a lava pit. Something essential for every... Wait a second. This is the armorer's hut, not the... God damn! Anyways, a lever, an iron trapdoor, and a ladder leading down into a small enclosed space satisfied the lava ordeal. Just for the wrong profession. Continuing on the topic of professions, let's take a look at the farmer's area. Starting with a simple fencing pattern, the left side is dominated by a massive piece of brain coral, serving as a constant reminder that it's part of an underwater village's blueprint, and not just a random gathering wheat and potatoes. I also added gravel to the floor to give it more texture. Onto the leather worker's house, where villagers go to get their leather clothes that they don't wear. There really isn't anything all that special about this build. It's just a simple rectangular castle looking thing with a small awning up front covered in banners. I ran out of ideas. What can I say? Finally, we have the... Wait, what? This is just a barrel. Is this supposed to be the fisherman's hut? You're damn right it is! What's the point of the fisherman's hut when you're completely surrounded by fish literally all the time? All you need to do is just break a piece of the dome here and voila! Now you have your very own fishing spot. Does anyone have any flux? Thanks, Phil Swift. I also designed houses for each coral type. Tube, brain, bubble, fire, and core. Corn. Tube, brain, bubble, fire, and corn. Corn! No! Beginning with the easiest build, the brain coral home was designed to mimic the style of a highly folded brain, since that just so happens to be what the real animal looks like. The same logic applies to the other buildings, each with the goal of looking like their real-life counterparts, just blockier. Unfortunately, as you'll come to find out here pretty soon, I didn't have enough room to fit more than 2 of them in my underwater dome. So for now, these 3 will just remain unbuilt until I find enough interest to care. I tried to warn you, the ocean makes me crabby. No pun intended. Every vanilla flavor village also has its decorations. For example, the Plains Village hosts a vast array of details such as flower beds, lamps, hay bales, and even animal pens. In this case, I created 2 unique accessories for the underwater village, a sea lantern lamp and a pile of dried kelp. Instead of flowers, coral will be used to add splashes of color. And as for the road, instead of the usual paved dirt, I replaced it with prismarine. I decided against adding a railway to the village, as it's meant to be a secret area, discovered only through exploration, rather than sticking to the tracks. Quite literally. Oh, and also because there's literally no room. Like, at all.
Alright, it's time to get a little wild. Welcome to the jungle, where we've got parrots and ocelots. We got everything you want, we even know the names. We got pandas and bamboo, vines and cocoa beans too. In the jungle, welcome to the jungle, feel the thrill of constantly running into bushes.
Now we're entering a bit more challenging territory. As many of you may already know, I really do say that a lot, don't I? Jungle villages aren't a thing in natural Minecraft spawns, nor are there any existing structures other than the jungle temple. So there's no readily made template for me to copy from. This led me down the YouTube rabbit hole in search of some creative inspiration. So I was on the hunt for my jungle village ideas and ended up watching those YouTube videos where a couple of guys build mud houses supposedly all by themselves in some random jungle. You know, the ones where you can clearly see bulldozer tracks in the mud and sometimes even the actual bulldozer in the background. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Well, those didn't help me much, considering this game doesn't have any heavy immersion. Which... What am I doing? Well, those didn't help me much, considering the game doesn't have any heavy machinery. Unless you want to count redstone contraptions, which I have no idea how to do anyway. So either way, I'm stuck winging it. And what do you know? Grian has a fantastic video showcasing his jungle-themed designs for each profession and provides a variety of different houses. Naturally, I couldn't resist borrowing a few ideas for this project. But don't worry, I'm not just going to replicate them block for block. I'll be adding my own unique touches to them, except a couple of them, actually. Plus, with bamboo now being a versatile building material for blocks, decorations, and structural elements, I'll be incorporating it into my own builds. With that in mind, I dove hornfirst into a creative super flat world to test my skills as a master builder. Lo and behold, after much trial and error, a little borrowing from Grian and various Google images, here are my 100% original designs. Me when I lie. I built 5 general houses, 3 with a single bed each, 1 with 2 beds, and the last one is larger, featuring 4 beds. The first general house is designed for 1 villager and incorporates elements of a stilt house, with the structure held up by stilts. The floor is bordered with stripped bamboo blocks, while the edges of the build are made of jungle logs. The walls are finished with jungle planks, and jungle fences serve as the windows. The roof is made of hay blocks, a common feature for all the impending jungle village houses. Heading up the stairs and inside, you'll find a very small floor plan, complete with a single bed and a chest to store any random crap they find throughout their 20-minute days. What in the world? Alright, I gotta get out of here. I'm very claustrophobic and uncomfortable. The second general house was built with the intention to resemble a treehouse, hence why it is quite literally built around a tree. It's very similar to the previous design, but slightly larger to accommodate 2 beds instead of just 1, with 1 placed on either side. Third, we have another single general house, but this one isn't a tree house, it's just a regular house inspired by a typical plains village house. This building features a higher hay block roof, with a small window made out of jungle fence. It incorporates many of the new bamboo blocks, creating a cool patterned floor design. Oh yeah, nothing like a good piss and shit colored house to really get your bowels moving. All this house needs now is a music box and the song that makes you poop CD. Wanting to incorporate more mud into my builds, despite it not naturally spawning in jungles, I designed another house variant to add some variety. I like to think villagers have the brain power to pour water over dirt to create mud, and then turn it into mud bricks, or packed mud, using the crafting tables I placed in some of the professions' houses, as you'll see later. This house is elevated on several layers of mud, providing a sturdy foundation. The structure itself is made of mud bricks and packed mud, featuring 2 small bedrooms. It's also built around a jungle tree, simply because this build had little to no thought process behind it, much like the majority of my creations. Was the tree necessary? Not really. Did it improve the quality of my build? Not really. The final general house is designed to accommodate up to 4 villagers. It features a small patio and a staircase leading inside. Once you're in, you'll find 2 beds on the first floor and 2 more beds upstairs. This build went through several design changes, like deciding on the type of wood and whether or not to use bamboo. Initially, it had a moss block roof, but I later found out that the jungle biome doesn't even have moss blocks, so I had to change it. And although I prefer the moss roof version, this reside version is a lot more realistic. This building here will be the library. Now this one I am the most proud of. I gotta say I did a fantastic job keeping its vanilla flavoring by making it as symmetrical as possible. But seriously, what's with villagers and their obsession with windows? It's like they see a 5x5 block space and think, you know what? This spot right here, they could really use a window. They take one glass pane, take a look, and suddenly they think they're a reincarnation of Frank Lloyd Wright. But I digress. Let's just take a moment to admire my craftsmanship here. This one is the cartographer's house. Once again, heavily inspired by Gran. Brace yourself, you'll be hearing that a lot in this part. I was particularly fond of how Gran placed the cartography table outside, rendering the adjacent house completely and utterly useless, much like the glow squid. God, I'm still fucking salty about that. I mean, come on! This guy could have added so much more lore to the game! And you're telling me this was what you guys wanted? Way to go, people! I guess I shouldn't have expected much, considering a bunch of Twitter users were in charge of determining the winner. I initially placed a bed on the top floor, but decided against it at the last second since it didn't seem very vanilla friendly. So it's just an empty room now, where the cartographer can look outside through the small cracks in the windows. Next is the cleric's house. For some inexplicable reason, whenever I visualize a cleric's building, I picture a grand wizard's tower. I've actually met a wizard once. They're not as grand as the folktales make them out to be. Nothing but a bunch of stuck-up, greedy bastards. Aiming to personify their massively inflated egos, I made the tower as tall as realistically possible. I would have made it taller, but it just doesn't match the game's vanilla style. Do you think maybe they're compensating for something here? I also added a long section sticking out the right side of the tower, which doesn't have it. Perhaps this is their reflection room, where they ponder upon their own self-importance and inflated sense of grandeur. Inside the tower lies a central spiral bamboo staircase, leading you toward the top. Along the way up, you'll find a chest, something unheard of in vanilla villages. Cleric buildings in the game don't typically spawn with a chest, so I took matters into my own hands by adding my own unique twist. Wow, a chest in a cleric's building? This truly is groundbreaking. This here is the shepherd's hut. I decided to go with a unique approach by not using any doors to enclose the building. An unheard of approach for shepherd's houses. Okay, technically the desert shepherd's house is partially exposed. Shut the fuck. Is partially exposed to the outdoors, but only partially. Please, just let me have this moment of thinking I'm creatively superior. Anyway, instead of having a separate area for the sheep, I built the workstation within the animal pen. This seemed great until I remembered villagers can open and close fence gates, and leaving the gates open would let the sheep escape, rendering the shepherd's house useless. Escape. So I tweaked the design with the intention of keeping the hut's original feel, while also being able to prevent animals from escaping. I also added a door for the shepherds to actually be able to access the loom this time. Much better, at least in terms of practicality. Next up, the toolsmith's house. Made entirely out of mud brick with a hay block roof, this house features a small awning that leads you inside to witness the charming interior, complete with a tiny workstation and stairs that take you up to the balcony. It's not the greatest workstation in the world, but hey, there's a balcony. Now for the Fletcher's building. Starting with a short jungle tree, I placed jungle wood stilts around it, making them 3 blocks high. I added a staircase leading up to the entrance and made the floor from jungle planks. To add a touch of color, and to claim I used the bamboo blocks, I added a stripped bamboo border at the bottom. The edges of the build are jungle logs, while the walls are a mix of jungle planks and jungle fences for windows. Inside, I placed green and brown carpet around the tree and added tables, chairs, and the Fletcher's table. A ladder on the side leads to the top of the build, giving the Fletcher a view of the entire village. There's also a chest for storing those overpriced arrows. Looking for a more unique way to build your villages? Look no further than my idea of an armorer's hut, which is definitely not the Wish version of a far greater YouTuber's design that I've been mentioning for the past 45 minutes. And as for this one, the blacksmith, yeah, I completely ripped this one off from green as well. It's just too perfect to change. I mean, just look at it. You can't beat perfection. Well, I suppose I could have tried, but I just chose not to. Too much work. There are 2 variants to the jungle farm. The first is a square shape with jungle logs surrounding the perimeter and jungle trapdoors placed on the sides. Each side of the square has a small staircase, allowing the villager to access their workplace and do some gardening. The other farm variant is slightly larger and features 2 different farm plots, one on the lower ground and one on the higher ground. Both plots are bordered with the same blocks as the previous design, but this one has a bit more pizzazz. First off, I had to tackle the ground. I went on a deforestation spree, flattening out any bumpy areas and clearing out bushes and several trees I'd previously planted. Basically, I committed a full-on Cargill. Next, I used cobblestone to mark where each building would go, starting with the smaller ones and gradually working my way up to the heftier structures. Once I finished building all the structures I had mapped out, I ran into a little issue. No more space. So I did what any sane builder would do. Picked a wall and blew it to smithereens to make more room. This wall right here looks like the perfect candidate for being blown to smithereens. Let's get started, shall we? Alrighty, this should be just enough space to fit the library, and maybe 1 or 2 other buildings if I'm resourceful enough. Why did I have to make the library so massive?